So yeah, BBC is pulling more of the same, but with a twist. I debated whether or not to do a whole video on this or possibly do it as a short, but since I know that the shorts algorithm is handled completely separately from the main videos, there was a distinct possibility that the right people wouldn't see it and a ton of the wrong people would, so here we are. BBC is continuing to claim my stuff, and if this seems slightly odd to you, since I had a plan to avoid that, yeah, it caught me off guard too, and what they claimed actually has proven a couple of things to not be the case, or a few things to more likely be the case. Quick update from before. They have been claiming my reviews of the recent episodes of Doctor Who, in which I use clips. Now, I used clips from, well, through the specials up through the release of Church on Ruby Road and all of what is officially dubbed as Season 1. And I did use clips, not long ones. I keep them under 10 seconds. I have for years because I know that under 10 seconds clears the bots. For point of clarity, the initial copyright bots, the ones that are meant to catch excessive uses of stuff, those are already in the system. So if my stuff was being caught by bots, that would be happening immediately upon upload, even before it goes public. That's not what has been happening with these. They've been getting claimed a week, 2 weeks later, sometimes even longer. Now, my assumption had been, and it seemed like a pretty safe assumption to make, was that the issue was with the newer footage, the stuff from the new episodes, because they weren't going back and claiming my old stuff. And on that assumption, the last few videos that I put out on Doctor Who around that stuff, including the review of Empire of Death, as well as my ranking of the episodes of that season, the YouTube version was released using only stills. There is a version with clips. It's up on Patreon. So if you want to see it, you can go there. And no, it's not paywalled. You can actually just see it there. The only thing that's paywalled in regards to that is that you get early access to as many videos as I can manage to have that be the case. But once something is public here, if there's an alternate version on Patreon, it's public at the same time. But anyways, while you're over there, if you want to support me a little bit, it's greatly appreciated. Regardless, they've now claimed the video I made on the Idiot's Lantern, my video declaring it to be the worst episode of Doctor Who. And this was surprising. This was surprising, actually, for a couple of reasons. The first being, while that does use clips, all the footage is from an older episode. Quite a bit older, in fact. Now, the first thing that this completely dissuades, and I never believed this was the case, but people in my comments frequently did, and no matter how many times I said I really don't think that's the case, people still said it. This basically proves Disney is not involved in these claims. The assumption was, and I think a lot of people just have the image of Disney as like, oh, well, they sue daycares for having murals of Mickey Mouse. And yes, they have a history of nonsense like that. But on YouTube specifically, speaking as the person who actually has to deal with them, Disney's one of the most easygoing IP holders out there. They're pretty liberal as far as letting people use footage because they seem to understand better than most of the other IP holders that if people are using clips and just not uploading the whole thing, but using clips or trailers and doing reactions or whatever, that effectively works as free marketing. Even if people are saying bad things about it, it is upping the profile. So they leave it alone. Disney has actually never given me trouble. Warner Brothers used to be laid back too. They're not now. They're a bag of dicks. But Disney has not been the problem. But this basically proves it's not them. And again, the claim has never come from Disney. It's always come from the BBC. But I did have to at least admit the possibility, even though I did not believe it to be the case. I did at least previously have to admit the possibility that Disney was putting their finger on the scale with BBC going, hey, could you be a little bit more aggressive in claiming the stuff that we're paying to be able to distribute? Because The Idiot's Lantern isn't on Disney Plus, it's still on Max. That catalog from Series 1 through Series 13, actually through Power of the Doctor, so what I'm now calling the revival run of Doctor Who, That's still all on Max. That agreement hasn't run out yet. So Disney has literally nothing to do with that. So this is just the BBC doing this. Now, it was odd, as I said, that they're claiming old stuff. I still did assume that it was tied to the new stuff, but I realized I made a classic correlation and assumed causation. The reason being, they were making all these claims on my stuff that featured these clips, and once the new season had started, the stuff I was putting up about Doctor Who was all about the new season. And I assumed that the ramp up was happening because I was talking about the new stuff. What I'm realizing now is the increase in frequency of claiming my stuff has nothing to do with which stuff I'm using. It doesn't have to do with the fact that I'm using footage from new episodes. It just has to do with the fact that I am uploading new videos. Because if it was about new footage, Idiot's Lantern wouldn't have clocked anybody's radar. But it did. Because it's me uploading it. So this is me saying, yes, I am being targeted. Now, I am not saying that I believe that this is because of my notice at the front of most of my Doctor Who videos, pointing out that the BBC news arm is transphobic. And first of all, nope, that's not going away. That playlist that I link in regards to that keeps getting longer. The issue has not resolved, but I still don't think that's what it is in specific. I think what has happened is that after they initially started clocking my stuff around the specials, because if you've been here a little while, you know what happened. They tried to claim the Star Beast had footage from the Giggle, and they blocked that video. Now that was just a screw up, because the part that they claimed was a part where I showed some of the credits. So very clearly what had happened was they had put the entirety of the Giggle into YouTube's system to say, flag anything with this. And since the credits are the same in all three of those specials, and in fact, it's the same credits going into season 1, that got caught up in a whole bunch of nonsense. Now, since then, it seems very clear that whoever it is at the BBC who manages these things manually, because again, I'm clearing the bots. Whoever is managing these things manually now is aware of my channel. Are they checking it constantly? No. But going by the frequency with which I get these claims, and sometimes get 2 at a time, they seem to be on a regular basis coming back to my channel to see if I've uploaded anything with Doctor Who footage and then claiming that. Now, again, I do not at this point necessarily believe that it is because of my notice about the BBC News Arm's transphobia. It is possible, and in fact, I'm going to be less definitive about saying that it isn't that than I have been in the past, but ultimately, I still cannot prove that. That is an unprovable position. So it doesn't do me any good to die on the hill of this is why they're doing it. I don't know that and I can't prove it. It's possible. But also, I'm not the only one this happens to. There are some other creators who regularly go through massive hurdles trying to get their reviews which contain clips. Now, people will talk about a lot of the people who badmouth the show, and at least the ones that I have checked out for reference, pretty much all use stills. They don't use footage almost at all. The main one that I can think of who does use footage, and as a result, his videos come out weeks or months after the episode does, because he waits until he's fully cleared through BBC's nonsense before he goes public with it, is Mr. Tardis. I'll put, I guess, a link down in the description if you're not familiar with him. Decent guy. I like his stuff for the most part. Don't always agree with him, but I don't always agree with anybody. So, whatever. The thing is, I know for a fact he goes through a lot of this. And it's distinctly possible there's way more YouTubers who go through this who just don't talk about it publicly. And I'm not going to start grilling people to find out what's on their back end if it's not something they're already volunteering information on. So I know that while it is possible I am on their radar for me pointing out BBC's transphobia, I'm also not the only person they do this to. But regardless of the reason, I am clearly being targeted at this point in terms of they come back around on my channel on a regular basis to see if I've used footage and then claim my stuff. Now, what has happened on the last few, and I am currently in the middle of the process on the one with Idiot's Lantern at time of recording, is that I dispute the claim, they reject it, I then appeal the claim, which is taking it up to a higher level that if they're going to continue to make their claim, they have to be prepared to actually defend it in court. That's the next stage after that. And so far, each time that I have appealed, they have let the clock run down, which is an interesting tactic for a very specific reason. Because if I appealed and they released it, that would be them admitting, oh, we claimed that wrongly. We should not have done that. If they just let the clock run out, which they don't for the disputes, like if all they wanted to do was waste my time, they could leave the dispute sitting for the full 30 days that thing takes before rejecting that. But they don't. I get a rejection on the dispute within a few days, and then on the appeal, that only has a 7-day because it's an escalation of the claim. And they let the 7 days run down. They just wait out the clock, which means that it defaults in my favor, but at no point do they have to make any admission that, oh yeah, no, our bad. It still defaults in my favor. I still win, but they admit no fault. Ain't that just lovely? And yeah, YouTube's a part of the problem insofar as their systems enable the BBC to do this, but as I pointed out, while YouTube still has a lot of improvements they could make, all of this is still being handled better than it was even 4 years ago, to say nothing of before that. What does this mean for the channel going forward? Well, I'm now going to have to implement the stills only for YouTube versions on literally every Doctor Who video I ever do going forward, regardless of what era I'm talking about. So the gap is going to widen between the stuff that I present here and the stuff that I put up on Patreon. And again, the core of those things, the ideas that I express, my thoughts, those will be exactly the same. It's not going to be a substantively different video. But the simple truth is, I use clips because I feel like my work is better with clips, using them usually without audio, but occasionally even showing a specific line reading to make a point or highlight a particular moment, something that did or didn't work. I believe my use of these things makes my work better, and I refuse to just have this reduction of my output. I refuse to degrade my work because of this nonsense. And so what I consider to be the proper versions of my Doctor Who videos, those will be on Patreon. What will be on here will be perfectly serviceable and an acceptable version of my videos, but they will not be how I want you to see my work. They will not be presented in the manner that I feel is the height of what I can do. And I'm not trying to big up like I do the best work possible, but I do feel that on the scale of how good my work is, it's better with clips. And so it'll be worse here. And that was going to be the case going forward just for brand new episodes. Now it's the case for Doctor Who across the freaking board. It just is. And I guess to circle back on two things, and one thing I meant to mention earlier, one of the reasons I suspect that it isn't just because of the transphobia heads up is because they haven't gone back to start claiming older stuff. Older stuff pre the specials from last year with Tennant. Now, if all they cared about, like if they were really personally ticked off about that, and who knows, for all I know, they're watching and I'm giving them ideas. But, you know, I'm giving them an idea that would prove a certain angle. So if you want to go that way, BBC, that's your call. But if they really wanted to just put the boot to my back over the fact that I have that warning, they would have to go back literally for years worth of stuff and claim so many more, and they haven't. Because I don't think it's worth their time to do. And if they were working off of spite for that, it might be. But it's probably at this point worth their time to intermittently, every couple of weeks, come back here and see what I've been up to and decide if they can claim my stuff. That just seems to be the way it is. Oh, and the other interesting side note is, you know how I said usually I use clips under 10 seconds? Here's an interesting thing about the video on the Idiot's Lantern. I actually outsourced the editing to that, which I almost never do. I've only ever done that twice. But that was actually edited by Channel Pup, who, if you haven't checked him out, he's fantastic. I love his stuff. He's a friend of mine. And actually, he has a very interesting history with Doctor Who himself. You know how the Absorbaloff in Love and Monsters was originally designed by a kid? Yeah, that's Channel Pup. He's a good guy. I've chatted with him more than a few times. I consider him a friend. But he did the editing on that one. It was a little bit of a thing for me to try because I want to outsource the editing. This doesn't mean I'm going to be outsourcing a lot of the editing because honestly, I can't afford to do it. But at least it stood along with another one because I had an assistant editor as well on the How Gay is Doctor Who video. Between those two and working with two different people, it sort of proved the viability of me working with an outside editor in terms of my ability to communicate with them and for them to get back to me a product that is to my satisfaction. But the reason I bring this up is one of the interesting things about the Idiot's Lantern video is Pup, on his own, I didn't ask him to do this, but he made the decision that he would keep clips under 5 seconds. So it's not about clip length either. Because as I said, 10 seconds clears the bots. I know that it does. And strictly speaking, it can't just be about clip length because he made the decision to go half the length that I normally do for clips. And it still got flagged a week and a half or so later. So yeah, hopefully this will be the last update I have to give on how the BBC just continues to try and mess with me and my income. Yeah, because unless there turns out to be an assumption I'm making that is false, like how I assumed it was just the newer episodes, unless there's another assumption that I'm making that is wrong, I should be in the clear going forward just by using stills for the YouTube version. And I am sorry for that. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I'm very unhappy with that. And even knowing that I win these disputes in the end, historically, reliably, it's a waste of my time, and I shouldn't have to deal with it. And I would rather just make the efforts to not have to deal with it at all on this platform. Good version will be up on Patreon. So there we go. That's the latest nonsense that they're pulling and jerking me around with. Whatever your thoughts are on this, if you think there's an aspect of this that I missed or didn't address, I don't know. Questions, comments, thoughts, drop it down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and is also how you can see the director's cut of my Doctor Who videos from recently and going forward into the indefinite future. Even if you can't support me on there, like, share, subscribe. They also help me out. Links to other stuff I do down in the description. Plus, I'll put a link to both Channel Pup and Mr. Tardis down there for reference. Oh, heck, you know what? I'll throw in a link to the other person who asked me not to use their actual name, but here is their channel name. And, check out that channel as well. They helped me with the Doctor Who gayness edit. Check all that stuff out, but don't worry too much about it. What I really want you to remember is whether you're being messed with by a broadcaster or not, you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council, and I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zumila Fulla, Goddess Elida, Trista Ashley, Oliver B., Melissa Peterson, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Going to the Anime, Jean Foray, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Linda Walters, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Fernambilax the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pal Barabajoggle, Lucy Wood, Dorm Mayhew, and Mary G. Thank you for your support, and consider supporting me as well on Patreon.